Hi everyone, hope you're having a lovely Sunday. Welcome to the first online session of 212 Photography Istanbul. So glad to meet you all here. We hope you enjoy our diverse program of talks on current events, as well as discussions with artists, the first of which we are about to do now with Hussein Chalayan. Here we go. Hi Hussein, how are you?
How are you?
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Our last talk was at the end of June, I guess.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was a good one.
Yeah. So, how did you spend your summer? What is your mood like now when we are transitioning from summer to autumn? Of course, this year was pretty lackluster for all of us, but I would like to hear your comments.
Yeah, sure. So it's definitely weird times, I think, for a lot of people. I happened to have quite a nice summer. I was in Cyprus and Turkey, and it was a combination of seeing my family and friends, but also working while I was there. In a way, I'd say that the social distancing issue was a bit softer there, and especially, even in Cyprus, it's quite strict actually, but still, it felt a little more relaxed. However, I think it's more our moods that get affected. The idea that there is uncertainty and we don't know what's going to happen exactly, especially in the fashion world. I have no idea what's going to happen. We're trying to hold on, and be active online and still carry on with many things. But it is a peculiar feeling not knowing what's going to happen, especially coming from a very regimented, let's say, routine, and then suddenly having to create a new normality, let's say. The fact that we weren't able to see our family and friends felt claustrophobic. The fact that the flights were closed and then we were able to travel after all that time was liberating, because there came a point where I thought, oh my God, am I going to see my family again and my close friends again? So, that live abroad, of course. I think it was good that we were able to overcome that.
Yeah, as you have mentioned, we had so many concerns. And there's a new term called the new normal. So what do you think about this term? How will it affect our lives in the future, as well as the future of creativity?
Well, I think that we have to find different ways of doing things, of course. I think that maybe these restrictions will allow us to think in more creative ways. I'd say, of course, it's obvious digital is going to get more important as there will be less personal contact. I think that people will probably consume less or a lot less. So that means that we will have to think in a more sustainable, more long-lasting terms. We have to think a bit more timelessly. I would say probably the time we do spend together is going to get more precious. So I think we're going to probably or hopefully value our friendships more, our families more, our loved ones more. Hopefully it's going to be an era of appreciation. I think one of the things I kept thinking about during the lockdown was how many places we visited and how often I traveled and how actually precious it was, especially if it was travel that I got a bit more out of. I hopefully it's going to be an era of appreciation and maybe being, maybe traveling less, being calmer, but appreciating the moment more.
So if we consider this creativity thing as a compass, how would you describe your journey so far, and how do you see it will evolve?
What happens, Merve, in moments of calm is that you reflect on all the work you've done in the past that you couldn't really think about because you were always so busy thinking about the next thing. So you don't realize how much you're producing. So what's happened is that I realized, oh my God, me and the company, we did so much in the last 26 years. And you don't realize the volume and the detail and the effort that went in. Of course, I know that we work hard, I work hard, but because you're always on the next thing, you lose sight of what you've done until then. So I think it also maybe is a moment of self-appreciation, that you maybe appreciate yourself and all the effort you made. These pauses are needed. I think it was almost, it's a pity that it had to come through a pandemic, but I think our lives were too fast anyway, too much consumption. I'd say a bit of an inhuman kind of routine. And also, we're very much living in an era where we had to please others all the time. So I would like to think that maybe the new chapter is about maybe pleasing yourself first. And of course, without being selfish and thinking of others too. But I do hope that there will be these kind of awakenings in people. But for some people, it's made their life better. I mean, you know, some businesses, some people have done better in this climate as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. So maybe we can continue with fashion. I will come back to sustainability, but what can and should fashion accomplish in the future? Because you have long been just opposing different materials and concepts in your work. And in the recent years, we have seen others also trying to do the same things. Like maybe we can give a couple of examples, like such as a type of fabric that prevents you from injury, or other type of fabrics that's recycled from sea debris. So in my opinion, ideas such as sustainability and eco-friendliness are sometimes used as a marketing tool. So how do you see the future of fashion, by all means?
Well, first of all, I think of sustainability as a given now. I don't think of it any longer as this separate entity that you have to tune into. I think it's just, for me, it's gone to the extent where there's no other way to work. I mean, you have to almost think of it as a reality rather than as something you've got to force yourself to be a part of. So first of all, I think any creative endeavor needs to start with that in mind. And, you know, I also teach in Berlin in HTW, which is a technical school, but it's also very creative. And my responsibility is actually sustainability and innovation. And what I'm trying to kind of encourage there, for instance, is that, you know, is to create an approach where creativity and sustainability are not really separate. So you really actually think of eco materials, but also a zero waste approach as a form of creativity rather than as a form of restriction. So I think there is a difference between biotechnology and all these different materials that people are producing by growing bacteria, etc. And I don't know, using silkworms to create silk, and so forth, which often is not that accessible for a lot of people because they're still underway or it's very expensive. And then, you know, there are people, you know, using banana fibers to make accessories, etc. It is happening, but it's still on quite a small scale. But there are other ways of being sustainable too, in also how you can extend the life of what you have, how you can reuse something that you have, how you can mend what you have in order to give it a new meaning and a new form of use. So I think it's also the way we design, you know, it's not only about just using eco materials, it's also about how you deal with what you have in hand. It's multifaceted, but I no longer think of it as this separate entity. You know, I think of it as just in the way that you have to use material when you're making a garment. Sustainability has to be something that you have to apply even from the beginning.
In the interview that we have made for the magazine, you mentioned that your next endeavor will be sustainability. But how do you think the fashion industry can or deal with its own trash pile?
There needs to be less product. I don't think we don't need all this product, personally. Yeah. I think that, you know, maybe it's going to be about building relationships and maybe answering people's needs more personally as opposed to the masses. Maybe it's going to be more about more of a personal approach, even if it's online, even if it's digital. Of course, it's much easier to do that with bricks and mortar. And also, it's going to be about engaging the user, you know, in such a way that they can keep their items for a lot longer and maybe prolong the life of what they buy. So I think it's going to be, hopefully, it will be about slower consumption, longer lasting, where people can really personalize what they buy, really cherish what they buy. Maybe they'll have to spend a bit more, but they will, you know, have something they can, use for a lot longer. Or, you know, we'll have to be part of a system where you can kind of reissue the garments you've bought, for instance, so that maybe, I think some of the high street brands are doing this already, where you can reissue and then you can buy something again, which is also reissuable and disposable. I think that we're going to have to think of a life as an ever-changing, non-static kind of entity, which, you know, if you look at the East historically, and if you look at the Far East, they already were thinking along those lines, you know, with the way they use nature and materials, that, you know, things were much more cyclical and they had a long-lasting life, and it wasn't about just something kind of being static. So I guess we have to think in more liquid, more non-static ways. ways.
Yeah, you mentioned that why do we need so many products so quickly and so much of it? At the same time, there's another question. Why can't we do with less and better quality? So these are all valid questions, but who is going to persuade the rest of the world?
I think that the conglomerates have a big role to play. I mean, they are really the kings of our industry. They have all the resources, all the possibilities. Thing is, they only support, the designers in their, obviously in their, let's say, umbrella. But I think that they, also there needs to be much more cooperation now with the industry members themselves. It's not going to be about only big companies monopolizing. I would like to think of much more cooperation between the bigger and the smaller companies. And I think what's happened with the monopoly of the conglomerates is that, they made themselves known. They are able to kind of advertise and reach many more people, but actually it's created a massive imbalance in our industry where, a lot of voices got lost because of them as well. So maybe this is a good time for them to be a bit more inclusive and actually also maybe talk about this new value system where it's going to be about less. Maybe it's going to be about much more personal kind of approach. Maybe people are going to have much more opportunity to have things custom made for them. But we create a system to allow for this. But I think the conglomerates have a lot of work to do. And I do feel they need to be inclusive. They have not been inclusive so far.
So in your view, what was our biggest mistake or sin as humanity? What could we have done better?
I think we're too greedy and we want things too fast. And we always want the bigger, better deal, I think that we are not satisfied with, simpler things. We always want more. And it means that we want to speed everything up, which then is just not natural because you've got to allow for things to naturally evolve. But I'd say it's that. I guess also we are also part of bigger political forces who manipulate the masses. I don't think it's just about us individuals. I think there are these other forces, not to say that the conspiracy theories exist in that cliche sense, but I do think governments and larger forces do rule our lives in some way. Especially through technology as well. I mean, I think that none of us have any privacy at all. And I do think, there are some kind of scary prospects in our lives in terms of, our independence, how much will be controlled, etc. But even that is going down to, in a way, greed and abuse of power, really. I think these two words or these two terms are probably the biggest issues we have, abuse of power and greed.
At the same time, we are currently at a crossroads where we have to decide what we want to leave for our future generations to inherit. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on monumentalization, which is a hot topic in US and also valid for British Museum for UK?
I use that word a lot, but I want you to tell me a bit more what you mean.
There has been, in the US, many sculptures in the common area has been removed. And yes. Also the founder...
I see.
The sculpture of the founder of British Museum has been suspended from the exhibition area. So
this is connected it's connected to obviously the ethical wrongdoings of the past. I know that, for instance, there are issues on Leopold, who ruled the rubber trade in the Congo. I think it's the right thing to do because there is a lot of celebration of unethical behavior from the past that we ignorantly sort of had in our lives and never questioned. And I think that the idea of this abuse being questioned is good, and I feel it will educate new generations as well. And yes, I do believe they should be demolished. So in a way, it always has to take some, it takes like a big saddening event or a frustrating event for these things to come to the surface. Why don't these things, get discussed even before anything happened? I guess if you're interested and you knew about Leopold before, maybe that you're going to be super uncomfortable to pass by his monument in Belgium. But I think, I don't know, I guess it's to do with your area of interest, but I do think it's healthy that, major issues are coming to the surface and there is anger. I think anger can resolve things. It can also, escalate things and it gets things out of control as well. But so far, I think it's been healthy.
Okay. So you are one of the leading figures who have been working towards women's empowerment for a long time. And are there any similar innovative ideas or projects you are working on in the upcoming seasons?
I mean, there is all the work I do, they're all interconnected. So I can't really say there is, they all flow in a very natural way. And I would say that my concerns are still the same. But I am interested in this new anthropology that we're in and how digital media is affecting us mentally as well. I'm interested in the isolation it creates, the despair it creates. But I've been interested in this subject matter for a long, long time, actually. But, it's gone on to a new level with the pandemic where we're even more isolated. And there is more despair, and there is depression, and there is loneliness, and all these things that are very important, I think. And, I wish we could do more for people who are feeling like this, feeling lonely, depressed, isolated, all of that. I think the pause really made me think of that actually we are not living in an inclusive world at all. We're living in a world of clubs, and of hubs. And, I have my own set of friends and, I feel grateful, but I am aware of a lot of feeling of isolation. And I guess this will be part of my work naturally, and how I can kind of rethink this and reframe this.
So maybe it's time to ask this, what's your method of retaining your sanity, especially in these?
Yeah. Honestly, I love relationships. I love a good conversation. I am very Mediterranean in a way. I was raised in London, but I'm from Cyprus. I'm from the Turkish part of Cyprus, as you know. And, I think I love being around curious, warm people who also, question the world and who are generous at the same time. So, I feel like if you are living in a place like London and you have got this sense of otherness about you, whether you are of mixed race or you come from another culture but you live here, you are very lucky because you have the chance to engage, with a social culture more, hopefully, if you know how to use it. So I feel lucky in that sense, and I think I do use it well. But I do think that there are lots of other people that miss out on good relationships and good connections and that kind of social culture I'm talking about.
Okay, so last two questions.
Sure.
I'm really curious what your comments on this Mars mission and also the chip that will be installed in a short period of time, as Elon Musk suggests, the Neuralink. Do topics like these galvanize you?
Oh, you know what? I kind of find them very predictable because this kind of conversation has been going on for a long, long time. It's just that somebody, actually has the opportunity to do it. But the idea of having a chip in your brain and being able to understand languages and being able to engage with another person with a chip, I mean, this is not a new subject. This has been going on for many, many years. Yeah. I think the difference here now is that someone's able to actually implement this and make it happen. And that obviously is valuable. I mean, I'm not looking forward to something like that. I think it's just going a bit too far. I mean, it's exciting. If there are ways in which you can use such a technology without it being inside your body, fine, maybe if there was a way of communicating with someone who doesn't speak your language through this method, but still, do we need to go that far? I'm not sure. So I'm torn about it. In one hand, I'm excited about such things, but I think I do find it too it's a bit too much of a interrogation to the body, I find. Mm-hmm. And robotics is another thing. If it enables you to do something that you can't do and it improves your ability to move or to act in a certain way, or behave in to function a certain way, I'm for that. But I'm not sure that we need to start, being taken over by artificial intelligence. I think it needs to be reviewed and it needs to be contained. And I think it's like fire. You can light a room or you can burn yourself. It's like that. I think technology is like this. You either use it in a way to improve your life or it can burn you. So you've got to know how to contain the fire.
So thank you. That was great, actually, that commentary, like the light. Can you share any insights into your upcoming projects with us? Maybe like a sneak peek. We are really curious. What's next for Hussein Chalayan?
Sure. So we are really, really seriously rethinking how we're going to move forward because we want to work in a different way. Actually, not only because of the pandemic. I think we were already thinking about this before, but the pandemic has kind of helped us speed it up a bit. So we're thinking of new ways of working, how we can engage with our audience. Also, I have a more art or orientated projects coming next year. A couple of them already. I can't say what they are yet to you because I'm not allowed. But one of them is a very, very big project, and the other one is a bit smaller, but still very important. And what I want to do is sort my archives out, because we have a very big archive, and I want to turn that into something. And that's another thing I'm working on right now. And yeah, so there's a lot to think about. As I said before, I also teach, and I really love doing that because I'm interested in youth culture. I'm interested in also helping younger generations with my experience. I turned 50 this year. I have a big body of knowledge and know-how to do with our industry. And yeah, I feel everyone, once they come to a certain age, should help the younger generation. I think it's our job. And so, yes, and I love doing that in Berlin, actually, in Hateve. It's a really exciting city. It's kind of like the new London for me. It's kind of like what London was before in the past. So yeah, I feel quite lucky that I have got these opportunities, but at the same time, it's not rosy, and I'm not comfortable all the time. And I do get nervous, and like everybody else, I am worrying as well. And that's part of being human. We can't always, be happy and fully content. I think that we're made to also suffer, and we're also made to be happy. Maybe happiness wouldn't mean that much without the suffering. So I like to think of it like that. Maybe without the light, there's no dark, and without the dark, there's no light. So you've got to be able to, you are programmed to have stress in your life as well.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you to you.